So I said before then, not knowing if I was going to end up back here, if at any point the Packers are ever in the Super Bowl, if I'm not going, I'm heading back to Green Bay to at least watch it, be around that atmosphere, because it's so fantastic.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Green Bay Narrative, a show where it is my job each and every week to sit down with a different fan to hear their stories. As always, I'm your host, Ben. On today's episode, I am joined by Paul. Paul is a die-hard Packers fan who resides in beautiful Green Bay, Wisconsin. What was really cool about Paul's story is just to be able to get an idea of what it's like for someone growing up in the Green Bay area. We've covered a lot of other areas, other countries, other states, but to really get a perspective of what it's like to grow up in Green Bay and how you become a Packers fan, which is probably not that hard to understand, but Paul's story was pretty unique with it. During our conversation, we talk about how he fell in love with the Packers, his first Packers game, kind of talked about current events with the traits of Ty Montgomery, how the season's going, those type of topics, and so much more. It was really cool to get to meet Paul, have him come over to my apartment and record this podcast. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Without delaying any further, let's get into the story. Today, I am joined by Paul. Paul, another Green Bay native, I guess, joining us here, drove all the way from the other side of town to join me in my apartment, which is always fun. Paul, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I always love talking Packers football, so I'm ready to do this.
I'm excited as well. So I kind of spoiled it already, but to start out with, where are you from?
I am born and raised in the Green Bay area. I'm technically from Suamico, which if you're not from here is just about 10 minutes north of Lambeau, just one of the suburbs on the north side.
Right. There's so many suburbs in this area, which is the funny part. You know, you have De Pere, Ashwaubenon, Bellevue, Alloway, Howard, just so many. Did I say Ashwaubenon? Yeah, I think I said Ashwaubenon. So many little of those parts. So with you being from the area, I'm sure it's pretty easy to understand how you became a Packers fan, but what really made you become a Packers fan in that sense?
I would say the biggest thing would have been the time I spent with my grandparents. They still live a block away from Lambeau Field. Park cars every Sunday, even through the cold and the late night games and all that stuff. So for me, when I was younger, 6, 7, 8, 9, quite a few years on Sundays, what I would do Sunday home games is head over to their house and help, and I'm doing air quotes when I say help park cars. Just interacting with the tailgaters. Now that I'm older, I understand what they were doing while they were there, but it was still fun. I still remember throwing the football around with them or throwing the football around with my grandpa. And then I'd stay there and watch the game. And when we're in the house watching the game, because they are so close, every time the Packers would score, I would run out the back door, the patio door, because you could hear the crowd. You could hear the music going.
Would you hear the... So I've always wondered that because I want a house in that vicinity. Not that I'll ever probably get one, but would you hear the eruption before you'd actually see it on TV?
Yep, just with the time delay you would, and then you just take off. I'd take off running every time just to hear it outside.
The spoiler alert of the crowd erupting, and then you see it. That's awesome.
But that was my first interaction for the longest time, and just growing up in this area. I went to school for college down in Iowa, and I would tell my friends, I said, there's just nothing like it, just the atmosphere up here. It's just a huge part of the culture. And if you're any sort of sports fan, especially a football fan, I just don't know how you don't get sucked into it.
Right. So with you going to school in Iowa, you're living in Green Bay, in the area, I should say. I keep saying Green Bay, but it's Suamico. With you being in that area, I mean, there's not a lot of opposing fans here. You have some Bears fans, you have some Vikings fans, and you sprinkle in a couple others, but... Then you go to Iowa, where it's a big divide. You have Packers, Vikings. I mean, those are the big two. What was that experience like for you? Because how long ago were you living there?
Me and my wife just moved back within the last 6 months.
Okay, so you had last year where the Vikings ended Rodgers' season, and then you're really living with Vikings fans. What was that experience like, going from being Packers the majority to now it's like Vikings and Packers really going head to head?
Yeah, a lot of Bears fans too. For me, it was difficult, and I tell people this. When I get upset for the Packer game, I can't help it. I just care that much.
Right.
Which, probably irrational. It's a game. I know it is, but I just can't help it.
Yeah.
And so when I'm here, I enjoy going to the bars, watching the games, being around the other fans. When I was in Iowa, I always had to watch at home. I just did not want to be around, because if they're losing and the other fans are...
Right. Yeah, you have someone poking the bear the entire time.
But you also didn't get every game, especially with last year, just with us not being in the playoff picture. So had to bite the bullet and go hang out. But, I mean, never any bad experiences. Just personally, I'd obviously rather be around Packer fans or watching at home and stuff like that.
Right.
But
well, I'm happy you're back in the area.
Thank you.
Green Bay's a wonderful place to be.
Sure is.
So, with you being from the area, one thing with my page is I try to help people figure out where to go to eat, drink, whatever. You mentioned that you like watching the game out at bars. I am not a bar person, and I don't like being around a lot of people. Where would you recommend the spot to go to watch a Packers game at a bar here in town?
If you're here on game day, there's Homegrown Way, where it's got Anduzzi's, the bar, stadium view, all that. If you go a block over, there's Burkle's. Yep. And the reason that we like it is because it's off the main drag. So it's busy. It's still game day. It's busy, but it's just not as busy.
Yeah, because you go to Titletown or some of those, you can't even get a spot. It's packed.
Yep, exactly.
Burkle's.
So if we're down around the stadium just hanging out, like we did that for week 1 against the Bears, we like going there just because it's a little off the beaten path a little bit, but obviously you're still close.
It's nice to have that energy from watching games like that in a bar when they go our way.
Yes,
now, when it goes the
exactly.
opposite way, it's almost like, maybe I don't want to be here.
And that's the part that I love about it too, is just you get sucked into the atmosphere and all that stuff, and you can't replicate it.
What about a restaurant that you'd like, if someone were coming to town and they're like, Paul, I'm going to my first Packers game. I've never been in Green Bay before. Where should I go eat?
If you're down by the stadium, I like Anduzzi's. Swamico, I know it's a little bit out of the way, but Town Line.
I got to write that one down.
Yep,
anytime I go to Swamico, I go to Rustique. So.
Oh, that's a really good one too. Town Line's just kind of more of a sports bar setting. Rustique's really good though too. But those are the two that I enjoy.
So being in Green Bay, it's kind of like a common stereotype that everyone has season tickets here. Does anyone in your family have season tickets?
We do not.
Oh, you're an anomaly.
Yes.
I'm surprised with your grandparents living so close they didn't hammer them out.
Nope.
So you've been to a few games throughout your lifetime, and I say few in like a kind of a joking manner. When did you go to your first game?
My first game was, trying to think, I was probably about 10 or 11 years old, and it was against the Lions, and I went with my grandfather, and I remember I was very excited. He even did the whole face paint thing.
Nice.
One side green, one side yellow, and then the white down the middle.
Nice. And kind of give some context. What age range are you in? I don't necessarily...
I was about 10 or 11.
Oh, no. Right now. So,
sorry. Right now I'm 27.
Okay, so not too long ago. I'm assuming the Packers won.
Yes, they did. And then shortly after that, I think I was in middle school, so I was probably 14, 15. That was my first night game. Got Mom and Dad, let me go to a Monday night game as long as I knew that I still had to get up and go to school the next day. But that one was against the Rams, and that was a really fun one as well.
Nice. Did you always go with your grandparents, or did your parents take you to that Monday night one?
Nope, that was with them as well, my grandparents.
Okay, so they really played a big influence on you doing this, and really pumping in your fandom. Are your parents big time Packers fans?
Yes, they are as well. Okay.
I mean, you're in the area, of course.
Yeah. And then once I got to high school, probably around sophomore, junior year or so, that's kind of, with your friends and stuff like that, then we'd start going to at least a game a year, sometimes 2 or 3. And even in my time in Iowa, I would still make it back up here for 2 or 3. when you're up here for Christmas time.
Right.
Always went to one then. I have some close friends who are Packers fans, so we started making it a tradition that we would always come up here. And they're actually coming up next weekend, so we're going to the Dolphins game.
Hey,
so
awesome.
We've seen a lot of division games, so we wanted to pick one. We're like, oh, that's kind of a goofy team we don't see very often.
Right.
and hopefully a W, because went to 2 Hundley games last year, and, well, we know how that went. So I need a W.
I read a stat that, now, obviously it'll be November still, but I just read a stat the other day on Reddit that Aaron Rodgers has not lost at Lambeau Field in December since 2008, which I think is the craziest statistic ever. I mean, he's lost in November, but never December since his rookie year. But the Dolphins one, I think you'll see a different crowd than a normal one, because it seems like the Dolphin game or those AFC games are cheaper tickets, so it's just a different crowd than a normal. Right. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that'll be a fun game. Like you said, hopefully a W. But with going back to your grandparents' parking, and I'm kind of all over the place, but that's fine. Okay. I've heard stories about families being able to pay their kids' college from parking. All these things. Do your grandparents do anything crazy with this money, or do they just like having that extra disposable income?
No, it's actually really boring. It pays their property taxes.
Nice. That's smart.
So
though.
It's still a good. Yeah, I mean, they put it to good use, but no, they don't do anything exciting or anything like that with it.
And I'm sure the price range from when you've started to now just kind of keeps gradually going up.
It's actually been the same.
Really?
Yep.
They're just hammering it out.
Yep. They don't really set the price. If everyone around them decided to raise it, they would too, but they're just there to park the cars, get their...
Well, you'd think if you started around, 20 years ago, you'd think that you'd have some sort of inflation on it, but maybe it's always just been consistent. So in your free time, when you're not working and doing whatever, you like to do some writing for Fanside?
Yep. I write for Lombardi Ave, and then reviewing the brew for the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm a big baseball fan as well.
Gotcha. So what got you into that, or what started that path for you?
Well, I love talking about the Packers and the Brewers, and like I said earlier, my wife can only handle so much of what I have to say. And so I've always had the thoughts and eventually started putting them down on paper, and then kind of just wanted to, or on the computer, and then just wanted to reach out and see if it's something that I could do as a pastime. I got in a regular 9-to-5 job, but it's something that I really enjoy, and something when I get home or if I get up early in the morning, something to work on, and I enjoy it. I can just put my thoughts down and put it out there for people to consume, and the biggest thing I look for is feedback, whether you agree or disagree. I just like getting other people's opinions on it as well.
And are you like me, where if something drops, you're like, oh, I got to put something out on this right away? Like, it's just it almost like eats at you until you sit down and talk about it or bring it to light.
Yes, 100%.
For anyone listening, where can they find you at?
On Twitter, you can find me at _Brettel P. It's my last name, BRETLP _. I post all of my articles on there.
Nice.
And then if you follow Lombardi Ave on Twitter or Reviewing the Brew, you'll see them pop up on there as well. But it's been a lot of fun, and important thing is something I enjoy.
What is your favorite part of doing it and your least favorite part of doing it?
My favorite part is just being able to share my ideas and get my thoughts down on paper. The least favorite part is what you touched on, is I always have this nagging feeling. Like last night we went to watch a high school football game, and I had this idea, and I'm going to do it later today. Yeah. But it was like, I need to get this down as far away from tomorrow night's game, because it just might be a little less relevant after that. And so just having that nagging feeling constantly, but that's just how I am though. If it's not this, it'd be something else that I'd be doing and diving in where I'd still have that feeling. So
and if you're like me, like the more I think about it, the more it's almost like I ramble about it, like in my mind, and then when I go to actually talk about it, I'm all over the place, because I feel like I've been building it up and building it up and building it up, that once I actually go to talk about it, because I do a lot of videos, I can't write worth a shit, like it's just terrible, but I do a lot of videos, and I feel like I'll do like 5 takes because I'll just ramble too much. I'm like, that's a 7-minute video, it should be a 4-minute, and then I just try to cut it back. So I don't know if you run into those same issues.
Yeah, that's what I do. So if I come up with an idea, the first thing I do is basically brainstorm, and I just write like every possible idea that could go down with it that would support that. and then I'll go find stats or, quotes, anything to support it. And then it's, okay, well, I'll cross this out, or, yep, this needs to stay.
Nice.
And then it's, all right, we have all these ideas and the facts. What order does it go in? So it's, makes sense, easy to read.
Right.
And then that's one of the good feelings I get, too, is when you have all that. Because it's like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
You put it together and you kind of sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there you can start.
So
writing.
was that part of your degree is writing, or have you always just been enjoying that process of it?
Yeah, no, I went to school for business administration. It was nothing high school, college, anything that I ever, outside of the writing class that they force you to take. Not something I ever did. It was just, I don't know, thought I'd give it a try a little bit ago, and found it was something that I enjoyed. So glad I did
and
that.
I'm sure your wife's happy that she doesn't have to hear about it all
exactly.
the time. So
just occasionally read it.
Yeah, there you go. Proofread it. And let me know what you think. So with you being in that space, I'm curious what your thoughts are of the Ty Montgomery trade, the HaHa trade, just because it is relevant. Your episode's going to have a turnaround time that's a little bit quicker than most. So by the time this plays, it'll probably still be a little relevant. Yep. What are your thoughts on that whole debacle, how that whole thing went down?
I thought it was unfortunate how Ty's time had to end here in Green Bay, but I think it was necessary. You read all the stuff that went down, and it was, I don't think it was scrubs saying those quotes. It was veterans. And then Ty's interview last Monday, he said he didn't trust the team. Said he didn't, know where he fitted on the team. Just a lot of signs that he needed to go. And you can tell that that's all they wanted to do. They got a 7th rounder in 2020.
They took whatever they could get.
Which I'm okay with, because the other option would have been releasing him. And you know who would have picked him up? Bill Belichick.
Right.
He would be a Patriot this weekend. So I'm okay with that. As far as HaHa, that's fine with me as well. I don't know what's happened to him over the last couple of years, but last year he just doesn't look interested out there. He's taking poor angles to tacklers. He's not trying to tackle. I know some people have brought up the interceptions. He's got 3 of our 5. If you really look at it, 2 of them's just been positioning. One was an overthrow. One was a tip ball. His third one against Buffalo was really good. I'll give him that. But, with Tremont Williams back there, he's a smart player. He'll be in position to make those type of interceptions. So I don't really think there's going to be much of a drop-off. I don't think there's going to be any point moving forward. We're going to go, shoot, I wish HaHa was here.
Right.
Big plays were happening with him anyways. He didn't want to be here, I don't think, either. And I think that shows a lot about what Gutekunst is trying to do, shape the locker room. If you don't want to be here, we don't want you here, and I'm 100% fine with that. I'm really excited for the secondary, honestly. Moving Tremont to safety means more playing time for Bashad Breeland and Josh Jackson. I was going to say Josh Jones. I don't think
I always mix
playing.
those two up, too.
Josh Jackson, and then that paired with Kevin King, Jair Alexander. I don't know. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be – I think they're going to be pretty good back there, and they've already shown that they got – it's already an upgrade over last year.
Oh, 100%.
I wrote an article this week about how Gutekunst is just overhauling Thompson's roster. Like, he must have just been, getting brain aneurysms sitting in the war room watching him make picks, because you can tell he hated it.
Right.
And I had someone comment on it and say they were talking about how he's done a bad job with the roster. And I didn't say anything back, but I'm reading this and I'm like, if you don't think this roster top to bottom is better than last year, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
It clearly is.
Well, look at last year. People are still pissed off that we took Kevin King instead of Watt.
Yeah.
Look at our D-backs last year. Now it's easy to say,
Right.
well, we got Jair, we got... But last year, we had no one. Heading into that draft, too, we had no one. Demarius Randall had looked rocky. He had a great rookie year, looked rocky. He was kind of the HaHa in that situation, too, where Demarius Randall always had interceptions and pick sixes, but it was just like they kind of fell into his lap.
It wasn't because he was making a play. It's almost because the quarterback or someone on the other team made a mistake.
Yeah, deflections, like odd deflections land right into his lap, and he just rally in. But yeah, I agree with HaHa. It's been a roller coaster. You either feast or famine with HaHa. And I like him as a person, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Same.
Sometimes it's just better to have that fresh And we saved $3 million in cap between him and Ty by trading them now, which you can put towards Kenny Clark. You can put towards Blake Martinez.
Yep.
You're good.
And then rambling too here, but jumping back to the Ty, part of me was thinking that, and there's no way we'll ever be able to prove this, just a theory, that Gutekunst getting rid of Ty Montgomery, locker room issues, that was number one. But a secondary might be taking him out of Mike McCarthy's hands. Ty Montgomery's been on the field 24% of the Packers' offensive plays this year. What other third option running back in the league is on the field a quarter of the time?
Right.
Guess I haven't looked it up to be sure. Gonna guess not many, if any.
But to me, they weren't even really utilizing him for his strength.
No.
Either the 24% he was on the field. I mean, you should almost be using him like they did with Randall Cobb in that backfield of, okay, he's going to go out for a quick swing pass, you're going to hit him, and then he's going to just try to make a play.
Yep, exactly.
Or just trying to get an odd matchup, but not...
I think in the right system with, if he was with like a Sean McVay, a Sean Payton, a Bill Belichick, a little more creativity in the offense, I think he can be a heck of a player. I think he's got a good skill set. He's obviously was a receiver out of the backfield doing that. I think he could be utilized. He's a mismatch for linebackers. I think in the right system, he'll do just fine.
Yeah,
but
they
it's just not here.
It'll be nice to see one less option on that running back by committee.
Yep.
Because now you can just run. You can get Aaron Jones and Jamal back there, and you can just kind of go from there and be fine with it. Part of me wonders if this is me speculating once again that the anonymous source that was talking, maybe it was Haha potentially. You wonder if like maybe Haha's talking to the media in that sense, and then you're creating more of a rift there. But I saw some conspiracy theories about that online there.
Sure, there's a lot of them out there, and unfortunately, it's one of those things we'll never know what truly happened in the locker room after. But if I could have been a fly on that wall, I would have loved it.
Excuse me. Do you think Haha going to Washington, do you think Washington re-signs him, or do you think they'll let him walk after this season?
That's a great question. I think that they will let him walk if he keeps doing what he's been doing here. I don't know. I don't see the value. I guess it all depends on price, if they can get him for a good price. But I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say they let him walk if he keeps doing what he's been doing.
How crazy to me, I would be pretty livid if Gutekunst traded a 4th round pick to rent a player for 8 games and then just let him walk. I mean, there's tremendous value in a 4th round pick. I mean, Mike Daniels, David Bakhtiari, just a couple names that come to mind to then just let him walk. After
that's a great point too. And I know a lot of people are upset that we got a 4th round pick for him. But if you look at the safety market, there isn't any. I mean, Earl Thomas, before he was injured, Dallas wasn't even willing to really give up a 2nd round pick for him. Then they give a 1st rounder for Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to
make
my next
no
point.
sense.
No,
but that's Jerry Jones. So I actually think a 4th rounder for him, considering the level he's been playing at, I think it was actually a pretty good job.
Right. And then there's a lot of people that are like, oh, we could have got more in compensation pick by doing this, but it's, if Gutekunst plans on being more aggressive in free agency, you're not going to get a compensation pick to begin with.
Right, exactly. You let someone go, but you bring someone in, similar pay values. It basically equals out, and then you either get nothing or maybe you get a 7th rounder. Yeah. Which I think is a good sign that he did do this, because it shows that he's going to be aggressive. I mean, they have, $45 million in cap space going into next year?
Yeah, when you lose... Technically, Cobb's going to be a free agent. Matthews is going to be a free agent. Those are 2 big, expensive pieces of the puzzle right now. Right. That you can bring that salary and go somewhere else with it, which should be exciting, because both I'm so thankful for everything they've done to the organization, but Clay's not worth the money he's getting paid right now. It's kind of like, to me, it's kind of very Jordy Nelson-esque. The money he was getting paid was more value from previous years,
right? Exactly,
where he was underpaid, so now he's not providing that same kind of value. So it'll be interesting to see, because you got Anthony Barr, who's becoming a free agent. Isn't Clowney?
Yep. That's kind of the one I was wondering if they would.
Could you imagine making a splash at Clowney and having him be on your edge?
As a Packer fan, no, I can't.
Man,
That's the other thing too. Fans got to remember, we got 45 million cap space, and there's a lot of negativity out there. Oh, we're not going to do anything. You need to separate Gutekunst from Thompson.
Thank you.
This is a new era. He went out, Wilkerson got hurt. It's unfortunate, but he brought in Jimmy Graham. He brought back Tremont Williams.
People just put them all in the same.
Exactly. It's like, no, these are two different regimes, two different thought processes. Yeah. And in my article, that's what I was trying to highlight, like the type of players he drafts versus who Ted drafted, being active in free agency versus not, and just not associating what he's doing with what Ted did.
Yeah. I have so many people on my page. When I posted the ha-ha thing, someone's like, oh, the Packers need to get rid of their GM. And I'm like, he's literally still wet behind the ears getting this roster together. You can't judge him. And I know the Packers want to go out and compete year one. Realistically, I think internally they're saying to themselves, we're okay not doing it year one.
Right.
You don't go into it wholeheartedly think that roster that's on the field right now can put you. Now, it still can. You have Rodgers there. You have talent. But you're not thinking year one is going to happen.
No.
Pettin's scheme still is really solidifying. Year two, I think you're going to really see a big jump. You're going to see a much bigger jump than you've seen year one.
Right.
Which is super exciting. Man, I had something else I was going to ask you. I'm trying to think. I'm sure it'll come back to me in 20 minutes or so. Kind of going back to the games. How many games would you estimate that you've been to?
Let me see here. Maybe 20, 25.
Okay, so a decent chunk. Excuse me. What would you say is your favorite game you've ever been to?
Easy answer. 2014. It was the last game of the year, I believe. Detroit was in town.
Oh, nice.
We went to the NFC Championship game that year, but it was because Rodgers had his calf injury. And so it was the one, I think, when Sue stepped on it. I think that happened at Lambeau. But either way, he had to leave, similar to the Bears game this year. Crowd's just quiet. Like, not just to the sidelines. He went to the locker room. 15 minutes later, and we were on the opposite side of the Packers tunnel, so we could see straight down the chute. All of a sudden, we start seeing someone walking out, and it's Aaron Rodgers. And when the rest of the crowd caught on, place just erupted. I still get goosebumps thinking about that. I wasn't at the Bears game this year in week one, but I assume it was similar. Obviously, this injury this year looked way more gruesome and season ending than that one.
Right.
But still, the hope was lost. Stadium was quiet. And then when he walked out of that tunnel and ran around back to the Packers sidelines, the place was just going absolutely nuts. I think it's still my favorite live sports moment I've ever seen.
Yeah, you just explaining it gave me chills too. I just remember Matt Flynn on that drive, and he's just going three and out. He's kind of struggling. And then they show Rodgers just in the tunnel, the green aura around him from the lights, just kind of sitting there waiting.
Yep.
And poor Matt Flynn's trying to operate this offense, and the crowd's just going nuts because Rodgers is just kind of standing in the tunnel.
And he waited in the tunnel longer than he had to let the offense finish out because he knew the stadium was going to go bonkers, which obviously it did. But that's an amazing moment.
Kind of like a Jordan Game 6 moment where just you're like, okay, it's not going to happen. Fine, we're still in the playoffs. You can rest him and let him get right. And then, nope, just comes back and takes care of business.
It was just this week or 2 weeks ago. I was just looking back to like their schedule from that season, and man, were they good. They put up over 40 points, I think 4 or 5 times. They crossed 50 twice, I think. That offense was just going and humming. And you wonder with McCarthy, what's changed? Because he just, they were just more aggressive. And
well, I think too, if you look at that season, Jordy had like an 80-yard touch. Well, maybe not 8, but like a 60 to 80-yard touchdown every damn game. Every game, he was just deep over the top. Rodgers was hitting him, and he was going. And maybe once he tore his ACL, you didn't have that next piece to really overlap because you had Driver, then Jennings, then you had Jennings, and then Jordy, and you had you didn't really have that next piece once Jordy went down, you cut it so abruptly. And now you're kind of seeing the emergence of Devontae. You're seeing MVS, who's coming on really nice, and I'm really excited about him. But
yeah, same.
Yeah, you look back at that season.
You forget how you think about the NFC Championship and how it ended. I mean, that's how I remember the season. But if you look back at the season and just what they did, they were a damn good team. I
think one of the big pieces of it too that a lot of fans don't think about is that offensive line. That offensive line gave him. I don't remember what game it was, but that there was one game where literally he just stood I think it was the Dallas game in the playoffs. He just stood in the pocket, and it felt like 8 seconds. He's just standing there, and no one's even. He's just kind of standing there, just waiting. I mean, that makes it really easy because right now it seems like a lot of times it breaks down too quick, and then he's scrambling for his life, and he can't throw across his body 40 yards to hit someone on a dime.
Yeah, the guard play this year's been up and down, specifically at the right guard. I mean, it's Byron Bell, and he's been okay, but I mean, if he has to go up against an Aaron Donald or an Ndamukong Suh like last week, he's just got no chance.
Yeah, because our line that year was what? Bakhtiari, Sittner, Lang. I can never remember which one's which.
Yeah.
Lindsley. Well, it didn't start out Lindsley.
Yeah,
but,
it was his rookie year.
Yep.
And then Bulaga.
Yeah, Bulaga, who is still really good on that point. Not that he hasn't really lost a ton given his injuries.
He takes a lot of shit from fans, and
yeah.
I know he gets injured, but I think overall he's a solid player. And
given his injuries, he hasn't really lost that much of a step.
No.
I mean, you'd think the dude's probably got knees made out of plastic at this point,
right?
But he's still standing in there every week and doing his thing. What a great game for you to be at. I'm envious of that one because just watching on TV and you talking about it, probably one of my favorite games I've ever witnessed, and I can't even imagine being there. For this week's fun Packers fact, I figured I'd tell a story that I heard in one of the Packer DVDs I own. I don't remember which one it is, but really cool story and something I didn't know prior to the DVD. So back in 1935, the Packers were in dire need of a center. They found a center. They tried to sign him to a contract. They offered him $110 a game over the course of a season, which was 14 games back then. That means this player would have made $1,540 over the course of 14 games. Huge money, right? The player ended up turning it down. The Detroit Lions reached out and tried getting this player to sign with them as well. The player thought it over and decided to not pursue football. Instead, headed over to Yale to study law, then went on to join the Navy and serve his country. Followed up with joining the House of Representatives and finally the White House, where Gerald Ford became the president. Crazy to think that President Ford was offered a contract to play center for the Green Bay Packers and decided to pursue other endeavors instead. I mean, what a terrible decision on his part. I'm sure he's looking back at it, kicking himself now. Anyway, let's get back to the episode. You mentioned it, week 1 this year. Rodgers gets hurt. Were you out at a bar watching it then?
No, just at home.
Okay.
If we go out to watch, it might be 1 or 2 games a year just to absorb the atmosphere. But I still like watching it from home. Had to work the next day too. But no, I was visibly upset.
What's going through your mind right away? Because, I mean, that looked bad.
I did. I said I thought it was 100% ACL. And then you start going through another football season with, I mean, realistically, Kaiser's not taking us to the playoffs. It's only week 1. You have this build-up going into the season. Rodgers is back. You're excited. We're going to go to the Super Bowl.
New defense.
Yes, exactly. New players, new defensive coordinator. And then, boom, just like that, you're like, it's gone. And then I start thinking back to last year and just not being in contention. And it shows how spoiled we are as fans that was that I'm like, we're going to miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. So, yeah, I was upset.
Kind of going off that point. I mean, I'm 29. You're 27. our whole lives we've known Favre and Rodgers.
Yep.
A lot of us are that way. A lot of our us fans are going to be that way. So when Rodgers does retire, odds are we're not getting that third guy. I mean, realistically speaking, that's going to be a tough thing to do. What are your thoughts, or what do you think is going to happen to the fan base when you have a guy who maybe you have a Johnny Manziel, or you have a Tyrod Taylor who could maybe manage the game but isn't over the top?
Right.
I mean, do you think you're going to start seeing a lot more tickets being for sale? Do you think that season ticket list is going to dwindle down?
I think the season ticket list will stay the same. I do think that, just looking at tickets online or reaching out to people, they're going to be a lot cheaper. There's a lot of Packer fans out there that bitch and moan right now.
Right.
And we're a really good team and we're fortunate. So I can't even imagine what that might be like. I'm guessing those fans will jump off because I think a lot of them are fair weather fans.
Agree.
But as far as going to games and stuff like that, no, I'll still be there. 16-0 and 16. I love this team. I'll watch every minute, every second.
Yep,
but
I'm the same way.
I do think that tickets, because I even noticed last year, my wife and I went to the Vikings game. It was either last game or second to last game. We're out of it. And I think we got tickets like under $100.
Yeah. My friend went over there we're walking around. That's the nice part about living so close.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not even going to a game, but I'll just go walk around and enjoy the atmosphere. And my friend got a ticket for $30 on Monday Night Football because people were trying to just basically give them away. They had nothing.
And here's a tip for those of you who live in Green Bay or you're visiting. Do that. Go hang around, tailgate, go to the bars. And then at kickoff, go on to StubHub, SeatGeek, whatever it is, and wait maybe at kickoff, 15 minutes in, you will find dirt cheap tickets.
Really?
And you can just walk on in, download it to your phone, and there you go. So there's my tip for everyone.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I've never even thought about that. Really interesting. Yeah, you mentioned the fans that are so fair weather. On my page now, I'll see people that are like, "Oh, the Patriots are just going to stomp us. I don't even know if I'm going to watch anyways." Well, what the hell? Why are you even a fan of this team,
right.
then? You might as well just go find a new team and it's crazy how when you have success, and now not Super Bowl winning success like the Patriots,
right.
but when you've had success over the last 30 years, how it just creates this huge pool of fair weather fans who or maybe not even, I mean, some are fair weather, some aren't. That's any sport. Yeah. We're spoiled.
Very much.
Everyone last year, sky's falling. This is the worst franchise that's ever lived.
Yeah, exactly.
You could very well see that after Rodgers retires and you might have to live with it for 5 years.
I mean, realistically, that's what will happen. Because like you said, finding another quarterback that's most likely not going to be at Rodgers or Favre level. So hopefully we can at least find someone who's competent.
Yeah.
And we don't, mire in that pool of, the Browns. Not saying we'd be that bad, but just teams where you rotate every year, bringing in just trying to find something.
And I say this all the time. I think if not for Favre having that defense that they had early on in his career, I don't know if he actually has the career he has, because those first few years were pretty rocky with him. But you had a defense that bailed him out so often that. If you don't have that elite defense, maybe that guy gets benched, and now it's the Mark Brunell show.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or it's something else. I mean, I read Ron Wolf's book, and there's times where Holmgren obviously wanted to bench Favre because he just won't listen to what.
Oh, I could see him being very frustrating for a coach.
So it's just some of those pieces, and you've seen that with other quarterbacks who maybe it takes them. Goff is another one coming in mind. They were struggling with him right away, and you allow him to kind of open up and figure it out and slowly come to light. You see that with quarterbacks all the time. So you hope that if you do find that guy, you allow him to actually come into the NFL probably like they did with Rodgers having the 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm biased because of what Aaron Rodgers has done, but everything's so now in the NFL. You got to win now. I think you got to let the quarterback sit. That's a damn near impossible position to play.
Yeah.
And throw in especially the college game is so far away from the NFL game offensively to have someone come in and just expect them to pick it up and, they go 3-13, all right, well, you're down, you figure it out in the next 8 games in year 2 or you're done. that's nowhere near enough time. I mean, even a year. Look at Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
This year, I think I truly believe that sitting for a year behind with a good coach like Andy Reid, a veteran like Alex Smith, does all the right things. I think he learned a lot, and it's helped him a lot. Versus if last year he said, "There you go, kid, figure it out."
Yeah. Because then you start getting sacked a lot. You start making a lot of mistakes. Mentally, you're just in your head
you get
every
defeated.
time. Yep. And then on the other side of that too, then another bright side of that, let's say you do sit. You go 3-13 the first year. Mm-hmm. Even with you have an incompetent starting quarterback, but you have your future on the bench, learning the playbook, learning the NFL, like getting up to speed. You go 3-13, you get a top 5 pick. Okay, now you got a top 5 pick, a defensive player that's going to boost your team a little bit. You're still sitting that future to let them really fully come in. Maybe go 8-8 the second season. You get a top 15, top 16 pick. Third season, you unleash your franchise. Well, now you have 2 strong picks that are in the NFL that can hopefully really put you over the edge once that player's ready to go. And then you come out firing like the Rams are buying a championship or trying to.
I wonder where are they getting this money from? It is unreal.
It's going to ruin them in about 2 years. The lack of draft picks and the dead money they're going to have is going to be just terrible.
That's kind of the new way in the NFL, though, is you get a good quarterback on a rookie deal where they're cheap. You build around them. Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson. They're trying to do that with Goff. Thought there's another one. Can't think of one off the top of my head. The Cowboys should have been doing that with Prescott. Stuff like that. I feel like that's kind of the new way to go. But like you said, it's long term. But I guess it's one of those things. As a Packer fan, would you take a Rodgers Super Bowl next year knowing the next 5 years are going to suck? Or would you try to build for those 5 years knowing you could get a Super Bowl? Or
And one thing I read that I thought was interesting, the last time a quarterback won the Super Bowl on a quarterback paycheck where you're getting a lot of money was like, I want to say it was like 2009 with Drew Brees.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because Rodgers was on his rookie deal. The next year, Eli, I don't think he gets paid elite money.
Brady never has.
Yeah, Brady. Oh, and everyone's like, oh, but Brady, but he takes such a pay cut.
Yeah,
for what he could be getting.
Oh, for sure.
So it's tough if you have a quarterback who's not on his rookie deal or a basic deal. I mean, Eli Manning's not getting top quarterback money.
No.
It's tough to really win it all when you're in that financial strain that the money's not going in other places like it did in 2010. You had a lot of other pieces that went with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. So, oh man, what was I keep having things that I'm like, oh, I got to get to this. But you talked about your best game you've ever been to. What would you say is your least favorite game you've ever been to?
I'm glad you asked, because if you didn't, I was going to bring that up anyways. 2011, I was at the Packers-Niners playoff game here.
2012.
2012.
Yep. Right?
Yep. When the Niners had Kaepernick and he was running all over us, it was up there with the Ice Bowl. I think with the wind chill, they said it was about minus 25. And I remember tailgating and cracked my beer, sitting there, I'm talking, and about 3-4 minutes later, I go take a drink. Nothing. Slush. Mother Nature set the pace that day.
That was the game that Micah dropped the winning interception?
That's right where I was going to go. So we're in the north end zone. Niners are driving the opposite direction, so their backs are to us. Kaepernick throws it, hits, and I can still picture it. Micah Hyde right there, guaranteed 100% pick six, bounces off his chest. Would have ended it. And then that's just like I have the Rodgers one that I just spoke on ingrained in my mind. I have that, and watching that ball bounce off of his chest. And then obviously they went down and kicked the game-winning field goal.
And it's crazy to me. Now Mike is great on the field, great person, and same with Casey. It's crazy to me the amount of lore they've gotten since they've left here and how great they both have played.
Especially Casey Hayward.
Yeah, but Packer fans make them like I think even worse, like they just blow up what they are. And Packer fans are great at doing that. You saw that with Khalil Mack on Twitter. It's like, well, if we get Khalil Mack, we'll never lose another game. If we don't get Khalil Mack, we'll never win another game.
Right.
You know, Packers some fans can be so extreme, one or the other. What are your thoughts on the Packers? Now, obviously hindsight's 2020, but at the time, what were your thoughts on the Packers letting Hayward and Hyde go?
The Hyde one, I was still am a little confused as to why we let him go. He's not overly athletic, but he's smart. And in our system, how we utilized him, I thought it worked for him. I think he's one of those players where he kind of needs the right system built around him, and he's really going to flourish versus, some of those guys who are super athletic and they can kind of bounce around and figure it out. Casey Hayward at the time, I don't know if he just didn't fit the scheme, but he had like 2 poor years here before we let him go.
And injuries.
Yes.
I mean, he was struggling to stay on the field.
So it's easy for everyone to look back and say, oh, we should have kept him. But if you look at his 2 years here, his last 2 years here, they weren't anything impressive, and I didn't really think anything of it at the time. I mean, good for him that he's, like I said, maybe the system that he's in, maybe he's like a Micah Hyde, and that's just more tailored to him.
Yep.
And so it just shows off his skills a lot better. He's taking advantage of it than what he was doing here. If he stayed in Green Bay, does the Casey Hayward that we see now, is that him? I don't know. I would guess not, because we had 2 years worth. He had 32 games. Maybe he missed some. I don't remember, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, his rookie year, he had a really good year, and then he got hurt, and then it really seemed like that injury was, and good for the Chargers. They took a chance on him. They really gave him a nice contract for the product that he put on the field for those couple of years.
Right.
Same with kind of goes with Micah too. They paid him starting safety money and a good contract when we still had Burnett and HaHa, who looked really promising, where he wasn't even a starter really anymore in our system. So it's interesting. I mean, happy for both of them to see success in the AFC. I'm glad, it's not Casey Hayward in Minnesota or Chicago where you're playing them twice a year.
Right, exactly.
You can still at least root for them from afar and be happy.
And I'm surprised the Vikings didn't pick either of them up. They always get the guys we let go of.
Right. Yeah, they're that was one of the things I was going to ask you, kind of with that. So 2007, obviously the Favre and company go to the NFC Championship, lose to the Giants. Favre retires, unretires, retires, unretired, boom, boom, boom. Packers trade him to the Jets. Hey, man, good luck in New York.
Exactly.
Comes back. Well, let's start with the Jets. What were your thoughts when he was with the Jets?
Like you just said, I wish you the best. I wish you would have retired a Packer. I understood it though, and part of, you can ask anyone who knows me really well, I love Aaron Rodgers. Not just his play on the field's amazing, but I think some of that came from because the whole Favre retiring, unretiring, that was about when I was in high school at the time, and there were a lot of Packer fans that were pissed at Aaron Rodgers. Like he's the one driving him out. It was Ted Thompson,
right?
And I think for right reasons. And so early on, this was before he was Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
I was like, I don't get why everyone's so mad at this guy. I'm going to root my hardest for him. And then he just explodes into Aaron Rodgers. So that's where, why I really started liking him. But to your question, he went to the Jets. It was the AFC. I'm always like that. If Packer goes somewhere else, even if it's in the NFC, if it's out of the North, I'm okay with that. When he decided to come back to Minnesota, and I think a big part of it was to spite Green Bay, I was pissed, I'll be honest.
Well, so you lived in the area at the time, because you must have been still, let's see.
I'd have been a junior, senior.
Yeah, so
junior, I think.
So you lived in Green Bay at the time. You were really in the thick of things here. What was the atmosphere and mood like here for that? Was it split? Was it a majority you were pretty pissed off? What was that like?
Him going to the Vikings, I think a majority were pissed. I did see a lot more number 4 Viking jerseys during that time, though, because there were people that were just loyal to him. And I understand that the 80s, 70s, and 80s were rough for the Packers. He was a part of that team that really brought us back to the got us our first Super Bowl since the Vince Lombardi era. So I understand that connection. And there were a lot of people that were still tied to him, and maybe they were closet fans who, as long as he wasn't playing the Packers, secretly rooting for him and all of that stuff. But I've never in my life rooted against a team so hard as I did in that NFC Championship. The last thing I want, the Vikings, absolutely despise them.
Mm-hmm. Do you hate them or the Bears more?
On the field, the Bears, the fans, the Vikings, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Their fans are insufferable, in my opinion.
Which
I imagine there's not too many Viking fan listeners to this, so I don't think I'll offend anyone.
What I laugh about that is my family's all Vikings fans.
Okay.
I'm the only, I
apologize.
there are some Packers fans in the family, but my brother is the opposite end of the spectrum that I am with the Packers. He is diehard Vikings everything. Mm-hmm. Vikings ride or die. My dad is... my dad's he likes the Vikings, but if the Vikings aren't in it, he'll still cheer that the Packers have success. Mm-hmm. He's just he's more of a college football guy, but he's Vikings, he grew up Vikings, but
every fan, and the fans I'm talking about, every fan base has them.
Oh yeah.
There's Packer fans that are like that.
But what I was going to say is I agree wholehearted with you that I hate Vikings fans. And I'm not talking about my family, obviously, but they are insufferable.
There's an arrogance where even if they're 0-15, just,
mm-hmm.
the Bears fan, because a lot of the games I've been to have been divisional, and the Bears fans, it's a good rivalry. It's historic. And I think, in recent years, they at least understand that Packers have been the better team
mm-hmm.
and all of that stuff. I feel like the Viking fans more so, at least in my experiences, have gone out of their way.
Mm-hmm.
The game I was at last year, they've won the division. They're playing Brett Hundley, and the guys across from us every time Vikings do something good, like little jab, like, oh, hey, do you see that? Do you see that? And I was like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that.
Right.
And I'm not saying don't cheer.
Yeah.
If the Vikings do something good, be loud, do all that stuff, but you don't need to go...
Don't poke the bear again.
Yeah, go out of your way to... and then there's Viking fans right in front of us. Super nice. A play happened. I could sit there, have a conversation with them about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, they cheered. I'm not one of those fans who gets mad if you cheer for the team if they do something good.
Yeah.
You should. That's why you're there.
Yep.
But going out of your way, I just feel like I've seen that a lot more.
Here's my breakdown on Vikings fans and Bears fans and the comparison. So 2013, Shea McClellan breaks Aaron Rodgers' collarbone.
Mm-hmm.
I never once heard a Bears fan talk about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they won the division. The Packers went on to win the division and whatever. You never heard shit from a Bears fan. Mm-hmm. Never did anyone make a joke about it. Never did anything like that. Vikings last year, Anthony Barr, it's the number one selling picture in Minnesota. It's the picture of Rodgers laying in the background, clutching his shoulder, and Barr walking away. I see that GIF posted on my page so often in the offseason. They constantly are so happy by the fact that they hurt a player, which is the lowest of the low. Mm-hmm. How can you be happy that... I just don't understand it.
They have it's an inferiority thing.
Yeah.
A little brother syndrome type thing, trying to...
That's what I think. The Packers and Bears are a brotherly rivalry.
Exactly.
It's like, at the end of the day, we'll talk shit, but...
Exactly.
But...
Two of the oldest franchises, longest rivalry.
But if you say something about them, like, whoa, that's our brother, that's we'll pick on them. But where the Vikings are like kind of the stepchild of the family, where you're just like, and the Lions are just waiting to be adopted.
Just forgotten about them,
where it's just, I don't know. I don't think, like you said, my brother won't even listen to this, but it's super frustrating. I agree with you.
And the Vikings fans hang division championship banner,
which is the most bizarre thing. Like, I don't understand, why would you celebrate winning a division championship?
I don't remember why he was asked about this, or it was within the last year, I think, maybe 2 years at the most. But McCarthy, somehow that came up with McCarthy, and he goes, "We only hang championship banners here." Mm-hmm.
Which is such a great line.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, yes, yes, we do.
I saw someone, the Vikings posted it, and posted something about it, and the fans were like, oh, yeah, like, oh, haha, Green Bay. And someone posted, inside the Hudson Center where you have the 13 banners.
Yeah.
And someone's like, "See, you guys post or someone's like, oh, the Packers post theirs too or whatever." And I'm like, I don't normally get in on those, but I was like, not that it matters, but those are 13 championship banners. I don't think they've ever printed a division banner anywhere. But
it's called Titletown for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Not division Titletown. If they want that title, Minneapolis, all yours. You can be division Titletown.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to win the division to win a championship. We saw that in 2010. So with that, with you living in the area, and I'm sure you remember Super Bowl 31 a little bit, but you were young. I was young for it. So it might have been even a little bit too early for you to really remember it.
I do a little. The one I really remember was next year against the Broncos. I still remember the Elway flip and or the sideways, the helicopter and all that.
I still haven't rewatched that game since that moment. Maybe I should one day and just put myself through the punishment.
Well, it's like the NFC Championship too. After that loss, I listened to just sports podcasts, Sports Center, all that stuff. I went 2, maybe 3 weeks where I just took that out of my life because I couldn't even hear that conversation being had.
It's still
that should have been Rodgers' second ring because I'm very confident we would have beat the Patriots.
It's still tough to think about. I mean, you still think about, and it's not even on Bostic. Everyone hates Bostic.
McCarthy's conservative play calling. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, Burnett sliding.
Yes.
Julius Peppers telling him not to. That 2-point conversion. I still have no idea how the hell that gets.
I know.
There's so many things, and it's funny. I met Holmgren shortly thereafter, like a month after it happened, and I had an opportunity to kind of talk to him one-on-one about it. And he said, I was watching it with my wife, and I told her the only way the Packers lose this is if 4 or 5 things happened. And then I watched all 4 or 5 things happen.
I mean, what, we're up 9 or 10 with 5-minute mark?
Yeah.
I was, so 2010, or that Super Bowl year, that was my freshman year at college. And I went to Iowa, or the University of Northern Iowa. But my very first year, I was at UW Green Bay.
Nice.
That Super Bowl year. Hands down, most fun night I've ever had in my life. So I said, and I live here now, but I said before then, not knowing if I was going to end up back here, if at any point the Packers are ever in the Super Bowl, if I'm not going, I'm heading back to Green Bay to at least watch it and just be around that atmosphere because it's so fantastic. So 2014, 5 minutes left. I'm starting to plan. All right, when am I heading home?
Right.
What am I doing? All this stuff. Like I was there.
Everyone was there.
My heart was just ripped out.
And you felt it too. You felt around that 5 minute. I think it all started with the Ryan fake punt punt for the touchdown. I think at that point you felt this isn't ending well for us. And it's kind of like the opposite of the Bears game this year. At halftime, I was like, I had a good feeling that this was going to end well for us. You just felt that vibe that this one's going to go in our favor. And in Seattle, like, we're all eating, having a good time. And at that moment, I think all of us just stopped eating and realized that was not going our way.
And momentum's a very real thing. And in overtime, I knew we were winning at that point.
Yeah, everything went wrong that possibly could. Well, let's touch on a happier subject before we bring down the room here. 2010, you said you're in college. They win their championship. Did you go out and rally throughout the city like everyone else does? Or what was that story like, or what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, we sure did. So I was 19. We came down to the stadium here where all the bars are, and it was just insane. Streets flooded, people going from bar to bar. We were in there getting beers. We weren't being ID'd.
Right.
Nobody cared. It was just fantastic. It was so much fun.
And then I saw pictures of them handing out the Green Bay Press Gazette of the world champions. They're just handing them out to everyone. That was when I moved here. That was the first thing I thought of is when they win a Super Bowl again, I'm not going to work the next day. I'm going out. I'm going to go high five every single person in Green Bay and really just enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And even the university canceled classes on Monday, just school wide.
Did they cancel them on Tuesday then for the return to Titletown?
Yes, and I did go to that too. Thank you for reminding me. That's just the epitome of Green Bay. It was 0 degrees below with the wind chill. Lambeau was sold out. I mean, it was cheap. I think it was maybe $10 tickets or something like that. But me and one of my friends went, and like I said, it was freezing. But that place was sold out.
It didn't help the fact that nothing was shoveled.
Right.
And like there's thick ice on all the bleachers. You couldn't even really walk because all the snow packed in.
Right.
And so like you're just frozen. And that coldness is radiating off. One thing I'll never forget about that moment is Donald Driver when he stepped up and the crowd erupted for, I don't know, it felt like a lifetime. Like if I remember right, they had to hush us because it was on national TV,
right? And
they had to get on with their program. But everyone went nuts for Donald Driver.
Yeah, I do remember that.
One of my favorite memories of that.
Yeah, just that whole couple days is just a whirlwind. It was awesome though.
Let's do that again so I can actually live here.
I agree. I'm waiting.
During this break, I wanted to first off take an opportunity to say thank you all so much for listening to this episode. It truly means the world to me that you're taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to this production. So thank you so much. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes and subscribe to the Green Bay Narrative there, or SoundCloud. Be sure to follow us there, the Green Bay Narrative as well. Also, you're going to want to check back next week, which is why I'm telling you to subscribe so you don't miss it. We are joined by a former Packers player, which was a super cool experience. We sat down, talked for about an hour. Really good stories that you're going to want to hear. I don't really want to give too much of a teaser away because I don't want to spoil who it is. If you're listening to this and you can prove to me that you subscribed or you follow me on SoundCloud, one of the two, message me on any of my social medias and I will tell you who it is. Appreciate y'all. Let's get back to our episode. So, a lot of people often say if Rodgers doesn't win another 2 rings or whatever, that it was a waste. What are your thoughts on that? Where do you align on that spectrum?
If I could write it myself, I would say I would love for him to at least get to 2. There's a lot of questionable quarterbacks with 1, 2 with 2 regular season MVPs. I guess we could assume maybe a second Super Bowl MVP if he got to that point. That's what I would love, and I think that's very realistic in the next 5 years. 2 more, I don't know.
That's tough.
That is tough.
2 and 5 is tough.
It's very tough. If he doesn't get any, it will. I'm sure the national media will spew their garbage, but it won't change my opinion of him. He's the most talented quarterback that I've seen, and obviously, I'm limited to my lifetime other than highlights of, the Dan Marinos, the Joe Montanas, who were towards the end of their career when I was, 5 or in that range. Elway. But he'll never, I don't know, my opinion of him will never change. The things that he's done with, especially in recent years, with just a limited roster has been phenomenal, and he's really shouldered this team. And the thing that's really bugging me about this week is Brady versus Rodgers and these hypothetical articles coming out, and neither of these guys play defense.
Right.
Football's the ultimate team game. Quarterback wins are not a stat.
Right. Which is, that's the only argument every Patriots fan. And
Brady is amazing. He's the most accomplished quarterback ever.
I was going to say,
I think talent-wise, he's the best.
I'm unlike most Packer fans. I don't hate Brady at all. I love watching Brady and Belichick and what they've done, because my God, like what the success they've had is unbelievable. No, I'm not gonna. It's no Vince Lombardi, Bart Starr, 5 championships in 7 years, but
and we're not biased.
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all. I would say that even if I was a Vikings fan.
Right.
No, but it's not Rodgers' fault that he hasn't had a defense. It's not Rodgers' fault that he's had to put up 40 points in some games just to even stay competitive in it. He's doing what he can with the resources he has, and it's not a knock on Brady or anything at all. But I'll post a video on my Packers page, and Patriots fans, if they see anything about Aaron Rodgers, it's like they get so insecure that,
I know.
But Brady, rings. And I'm just like, it doesn't, Brady's not out there playing middle linebacker.
Right. That's why the whole Brady's versus Rodgers thing, it's like they're really not competing against each other.
No.
It's not like basketball. You know, if you had LeBron versus Durant and they can literally go one-on-one, or in a basketball game, one player can truly affect the game.
Yep.
I mean, what's the stat? Rodgers' career playoff losses, the defense is giving up an average of like 36 points a game. I saw another stat where if the Patriots defense has allowed more than 30 points in the game, Brady's like 0 and I don't know the number exactly, but he hasn't won. He's like 0 for 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. It's
right.
Because it hasn't happened a lot because they're a good team.
And that's the funny thing. You say 0, 3, 4, but with Rodgers, it's like probably 25. You know, he's just seen these defenses just
and then
give
how
up.
many, thinking back to games, regular season, playoffs, and the losses that we've had, I don't have any that come to mind where it's like, man, Rodgers blew that one for us.
No, it's very limited. I mean, you could make an argument in 2011 against the Giants.
Yep.
He started out super slow.
He did.
Missed a lot of throws.
Yep.
Was very off. But that defense didn't help.
Nope.
You know, that defense the whole year didn't help. It was Rodgers outscoring the other opponent. And that's how they won their games.
What about that year? It's like, man, we're going back to back.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were amazing.
Yeah, we're 13 and 1. Yeah, 13 and 0. You know, we're going back to back. I mean, it doesn't matter. We don't have a defense. The best. What was the thing? The best defense is a great offense.
Right,
That's what
exactly.
everyone was saying. And then you played a defense, and you're like, okay, maybe not. Yeah, and you know, I still think getting rid of Cullen Jenkins was the big thing that derailed that. You lost a lot of your pressure up in that front. And then obviously Nick Collins going down, that hinders that team a lot.
Yeah.
And just crazy how you can catch lightning in a bottle the way they did, and that defense goes from being like top 2 ranked. I don't remember exactly what they were, because I think Steelers were the number 1 defense.
Yeah, they were top 5 that year, I think.
And then you go to having the worst defense in the NFL, which that's what makes me excited about Pettin. Pettin doesn't run his ship that way. Pettin makes a defense out of what he has, and he's done that throughout his entire career, which is a really exciting thing to have.
Yeah, and I love the addition of Jair Alexander. When they drafted him, I was excited. I knew he was a good player. He's a playmaker, but for his attitude. The defense,
swagger.
Exactly. The defense needed something. It was just so bland and dull. You didn't have, you know, like Jalen Ramsey in Jacksonville. Obviously a heck of a player. I think he runs his mouth too much. But that kind of, you know, attitude of I'm the best, you know, we just needed something. And I think he helped, you know, breaking up a play, doing a little dance, just something to just fire everyone up. You know, before him, who would we say did that? Mike Daniels maybe, but it wasn't.
Not consistent enough to actually be able to see it.
And he's double teamed half the time. So.
Yeah. I'm trying to, did we really even have anyone with attitude like that?
No,
it's been a while.
And I think our defense started to reflect Dom Capers. I mean, he's not exactly a fiery individual.
When I knew I loved Jair was when it was after they drafted him, they showed college ones, and he's not. This receiver he was going against was much bigger than he was. He broke it up, and then he put his arms on his hip. Almost. And like strutted behind him, making fun of him. And I was like, this guy's awesome. I saw a stat that, or a fact. It was one of my facts on my podcast. Ron Wolf's first draft pick was Terrell Buckley.
Oh.
Gutekunst's first draft pick was an undersized corner, just like Terrell Buckley.
Yep.
In Jair. And in college, Jair's cornerback coach was Terrell Buckley. So which was pretty funny. Just circle. Full circle.
And then Josh Jackson falling to pick 45. That I couldn't believe.
Yeah.
I think this will be. I mean, we've already seen Oren Burks in the 3rd round hasn't done. You know, we're only 8 games into his career. We can't judge any of these guys, but just the early results we've seen from Jackson, Jair, EQ, MVS.
MVS looks like he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I think because of him, this will be Cobb's last year here if he keeps doing what he's been doing.
And it's Jamon Moore hasn't really panned up on anything yet, but it's still early. I mean, everyone wanted Devontae gone after 2015.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I don't know if they were playing it safe with Cobb and Allison off their injury, but I didn't realize it during the game. But MVS took more snaps than both of them against the Rams.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't. He was only targeted twice. Obviously, it's a big touchdown, but that one surprised me. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they could have been playing it safe, or they liked how it aligned in the package.
And now Allison's out Sunday. Bill Belichick does a lot of whoever your best player is, I'm going to take them out. So I think this could be a big game for MVS because I think Devontae is just going to draw a ton of attention as he deserves. Because he's a top 5 receiver in this league.
Right.
100% mean that.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, he shows it week in, week out. He's always getting touchdowns. He's always making plays. He
just had his third 100-yard game in a row. He's chasing Adam Thielen.
which I know no Viking fans listen to this, but I love Adam Thielen.
I did too. He's a good dude.
Undrafted.
D2.
Yeah, D2. Didn't get like any scholarship offers. Just worked his ass off.
No, I like him too.
And he's paid like 4 years, $20 million. He's like an absolute steal for Minnesota. Good for him. I'm like nothing but good wishes for that guy.
No, I agree. I like him.
And then you have Diggs on the other end who got paid a significant amount. But I don't think he's even bringing what his... I don't watch enough Viking stuff.
Right.
But all you hear is Thielen.
Yeah,
You never hear Diggs.
Thielen's putting up the numbers.
Yeah, interesting. Well, to kind of end this off, I don't know how many of these you listen to, but I do more deep thought questions.
Okay.
I think you'll enjoy some of these. They're meant to kind of make you think a little bit more and challenge you here. So the first one I'm starting out with, if you could meet and have a conversation with any person associated with the Packers, alive or dead, I'm excluding Vince Lombardi, who would you choose and why?
Excluding Vince Lombardi, okay.
Everyone was like Vince Lombardi.
Right,
so.
that'd be the easy one. Okay. Gosh, that's a great one. I think I'd pick Bart Starr.
Yeah?
Because of the connection to Vince Lombardi. I just think talking through him, the formative years of the Packers and kind of building, who they are today and that tradition and all that. And I know it started before that era, just because we've been around so long. But just talking through him, I'd love to just sit down and go through like the Ice Bowl,
Right.
The first couple Super Bowls. I think that would be Aaron Rodgers would be a close second because, like I said, but I just think the conversation with Bart Starr would...
The stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it'd just be fantastic.
How you go from 1-10-1 to now winning 5 championships in 7 years is mind blowing. That's insane. Good.
Those teams are so loaded.
Yeah, yeah. It's in just they. I don't know if you've ever read Instant Replay by Jerry Kramer. It's his like diary from the 1967 season.
Okay.
But it's cool because he breaks down every single game of like what happened, what happens going into these games, what Vince Lombardi's saying. If you're a reader, I think you should check it out. That's a absolutely unbelievable book. But there's times where Starr was hurt for stretches, and I think it was Zeke Burkowski comes in and still does the job. And just the depth they had and how good of a coach Lombardi was to really go to his strengths rather than trying to put too much workload on someone. Exactly. It's unbelievable. So that would be an interesting person to sit down and talk to.
One of the interesting, I think I was watching a Football Life, and I think it was on John Madden, and he mentioned early in his career before he started, or he's just getting into coaching, he went to this seminar that Vince Lombardi was putting on, and Madden goes, I get there, I think I'm a pretty darn good coach. We spent the 8-hour day talking about just the halfback sweep. And I went, I don't know football at all. This man spent 8 hours on one play.
That's hilarious.
I think that just sums up Lombardi.
Yeah, there's
attention to detail.
There's a good documentary called Lombardi where John Madden's and they're talking about that too, and it's funny. But yeah, what a madman. I mean, focused so much on it that he would go to the wrong house at times after work, walk into the wrong house, thinking it was his. Just unbelievable.
Wild.
Yeah, I mean, what a. Everyone wants perfection and everyone wants success, but looking at what he had to do to get it and drive himself absolutely mad and obviously put his health on the line because of that, just unreal.
And then one of the biggest travesties from that era was Jerry Kramer just getting into the Hall of Fame now.
Right.
And I'm afraid that this is happening to Leroy Butler. His like John Lynch just got in. his stats blow his out of the water.
And didn't Dawkins just get in too? And
Yeah,
same,
Brian Dawkins.
Same story.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know why he's being overlooked. He gets to like the final pool, or he makes the first, gets the final 10 or however many there are. But I'm afraid he's going to turn into that where it's going to be 30 years from now.
And Kramer, I could understand a little bit more for the sense of there's so many players from that roster in the Hall of Fame already.
Right.
He had said some things when he was younger about the Hall of Fame that it sounded like that the Hall of Fame voters didn't like. But there's not a lot from that 90s squad.
The original Terrell Owens.
Yeah. There's not a lot from that 90s squad that are in the Hall of Fame. It's not like he's bad. There's really no reason why, other than he's not. Brian Dawkins was a name.
Right.
John Lynch was a name. Leroy Butler kind of always flew under the radar and just did it.
And he invented the Lambeau Leap.
Yeah.
Another notch in his belt.
Put that on his Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying that for a while now he was my favorite player growing up. So I think all day long. Good answer on that one. If you could go to any game in the history of the Packers, and I'm going to exclude any championship game, which game would you choose? There's only 100 seasons to choose from. Shouldn't be too hard.
One came to mind right away. I'm just trying to file through here quickly to see if anything else pops out. Obviously, I'd want to go to a victory. I think I'd choose the Ice Bowl.
Yeah?
It's just so historic.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. What about, let's throw the Ice Bowl off the table.
Okay.
Because I get that one a lot too. So I'll give you a second one.
Okay.
There are a lot of games. Just even me thinking about it from my own personal.
Might be recency bias, but the Hail Mary in Detroit.
Nice.
Just for that moment.
Yeah.
That was the first of now 3 he's rallied off, and
that game that you're thinking, no way in hell is this.
Well, yeah, it got extended because of a face mask. Yeah. It should have been over.
Yeah.
And maybe Rodgers did a little choreography, but
he had his hand in there.
He did. It was hand in the kitchen.
It was an easy tackle. Really, that was the Lions' fault. Rodgers couldn't throw it any longer. He was a runner at that point, and you had two defenders sitting right there. Mm-hmm. You could have just easily have wrapped him up, brought him down, called it a day.
Yeah, I think that one comes to mind for a couple of reasons. Just the fact that it was a comeback, the way it was a comeback. If you were there, you're on the road, divisional game. Watching the Lions fans just have their hearts ripped out by number 12. And then the throw itself. God.
Almost
thing went as high as it did far.
Yeah. And then to think then I remember against the Cardinals, I was like, there's no way in hell he does this again.
Right.
You've already got one. Be thankful you got one. There's no way you're getting another one. And then he gets it. And I'm just like, what? And then the following year against the Giants, I was at that game, thankfully. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to huck it up. We've gotten two. You're not getting a third.
Right.
And then you get it in the place just
perfectly in the top and the back.
He pushed off a little. Right. You got a little, but they're going to allow.
They're not throwing flags.
Yeah, they're going to allow a slight.
Yeah.
If he would have maybe not, because Golden Tate didn't get one when he pushed.
Another fail, Mary.
Yeah, was it Sam Shields? He blatantly pushed down. So maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, it's. I like that answer.
Or in Dallas, too, after the Giants game. The Mason Crosby kick.
Yeah.
Jared Cook on the sidelines.
That'd be a fun one to be at.
It would have been.
That still is probably one of my favorite games I ever witnessed. Just going into that, the Cowboys were such a powerhouse.
Yep. I think 13-3 that year.
And if you remember earlier in that year, the Cowboys absolutely wiped out the Packers in the regular season, just demolished them all around. And the Packers are good at that. The Packers lose to a team in regular season and then beat them in the playoffs. It just, I really hope we see the Rams again in the playoffs, because I think Packers are going to have their number and it's going to be a different outcome.
And not to get too far off track, but it was a loss. But Monday morning, I was almost more encouraged from the loss than I was coming off of any of our wins. I think all around, it still wasn't 4 good quarters from all 3 phases, but it was closer.
Yep.
And
If they start clicking, that could be a danger.
That offense is talented.
Yeah.
They got weapons.
Yeah, it could be. Now, I'm not saying the outcome is the same, but it could be a 2010-esque where you get hot at the right time, you start clicking, you win the games you need to win, you get into the postseason, and then see what happens. Anything could happen at that point.
Packer Nation, we were 3-3 that year.
Yeah. Yeah, you really, anything could happen.
Right.
Anything could happen. If you could take any player from a past team, any Packer player from a past team in their prime and add them to today's roster, excluding Reggie White, who are you taking?
I think Leroy Butler to help at safety.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I was thinking either Leroy or Nick Collins.
Yep.
Those were the two that came to mind right away for me.
You do a good job of excluding the obvious answers.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to... You need that pass rush. Another good one I've heard from...
Offensively, I mean, I like where we are with the weapons that we have. Yeah, I think I would. Yeah. I like Leroy.
Yeah, you got to do that safety, especially right now. Right now, it's got to be a safety. Because you got good on corners. You don't need to get like Charles Woodson in there or anything like that. You're good where you're at with corners.
That'd be a safety or a edge rusher.
And there's no dominant linebacker in recent memory that could come in. Yeah, another one that I really like that other people had the loophole of it was KGB. Because think about him in his prime and
he was a beast.
that edge rush. But I really like Leroy Butler's. That's a good answer. And I don't think I've had anyone answer with that. So you might be a first on that one.
Here we go. I'm a Leroy Butler fan.
If you could watch any game again for the first time, having the same reactions again, the same roller coaster ride, which game would you choose?
No championships?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want on this one.
No, 2010.
Okay.
That, like I said, that was the most fun night.
Yeah. Okay,
just experience.
Let's exclude championships since we know Super Bowl 45 is a good one for you.
Okay. If we're going off reactions, the Lions Hail Mary, jumped down on my knees out of the chair and just start pounding the ground. I was like, I couldn't believe it.
I hope you didn't have neighbors below you at that point.
No, ground floor, luckily. Yeah, as far as reaction and just emotion, I had to say that one. I mean, any of his Hail Marys, the Cardinals won, but that one didn't end up as well.
Good answers on those.
Yeah, I picked that one.
That's a good answer. I didn't know if you'd go to the Bears game this year, but maybe if you...
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, that's a good one. All of them, there's so many to choose from. Think about with Rodgers, how fortunate we are. We've had so many of those games, the Cowboys games, a couple times now. The Bears, you've had so many of those throughout his career that we're so fortunate because other franchises don't. You know, you think other franchises just don't have that same week in and week out. If he gets the ball in his hands with 2 minutes left, you're almost thinking he's got too much time.
Right.
You know, like I'm worried he's going to go down and score too quickly, and we're gonna have too much time left.
Look what he did against the Vikings. Crosby missed a field goal, but he got into range in 30 seconds, 40 seconds.
And then who was it? The Niners this year, where it's like starting on your own 10 with under a minute, and you get to the 20-yard line or something ridiculous where you're just there.
And we as fans have to keep that in perspective and not become numb to it, as in, we'll just go do it and take a step back and realize how special it is what he's doing and the fact that he does it so consistently, which how he gets ripped on by the national media in some cases. It's like, look at what he's doing and how often he does it. And the fact that it's not a surprise when he does that tells you how great he is.
That poor quarterback who's following him. I mean, if that poor person who's going to have to come in and be that next person that you follow the guy that does that every 2 minute time. Because with Favre, you're like, okay, this is probably going to be either an interception. Maybe we'll drive down the field and get this. But with Rodgers, you're not. Interception's never crossing your mind.
Right. And you mentioned before being in Iowa, there's a lot of Vikings fans, and I have some friends who are, and they'll still talk about that Favre interception in the NFC Championship against the Saints. And I was like, did you not know the guy that you were getting?
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I remember when was it, 03 or 04 playoffs against the Rams, and he had 5 interceptions.
Yeah.
Like
5 or 6 that one.
Yeah,
Right?
it was
a lot.
For all the great stuff he does, he was a gunslinger. He lived and died by his arm. He's like, the thing I'm saying is getting mad at him for that. It's him being him.
Yep.
You know, that's what he did.
Yep.
Could have been great. Could have been a dud. And the fact, you know.
Yeah, he cocked back the throw, and you're like, oh, God, where is this going? Because he would overthrow him 5 yards right to a D-back. And then Rodgers, he cocks back, and you
just expect something. Then.
Yeah, you're like, okay, this is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's funny. Last one for you here. If you became the owner, president, whatever, of the Packers, what's the first thing you're doing as an owner? You have full authority to do whatever you want. Roster moves, community moves, team moves, whatever you want to do.
All right. Before I give my answer, I'm going to preface this. I have never, ever been a fire McCarthy guy. I know it's been a lot of chatter the last few years. I've never been one of those people until recently.
Really?
Yes. I think it's time for a change. Mm-hmm. He's been there 13 years. You know, even, who was it? Bill Walsh said that. I think after 10 years, things can get stale. Mm-hmm. And look at all the success New England's had. And I know it's been a little longer than 13. But even there's still, you know, stuff building within. Mm-hmm. And I just think at this point, a change is needed. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wanted to preface it, because I know a lot of people have been saying that for years, and I've never been one of those people.
Yep.
But I have been switched over this season.
Yep.
I think he's a good coach. He'll go somewhere else, be successful. Who we bring in, I don't know. I'd have to take some time and think about that. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's time just to get change in there. I think I think this offense is so talented, and I think it's just being underutilized. The fact that he seems like the only person in the state of Wisconsin that doesn't know that Aaron Jones needs the ball more.
I'm with you on that. I've always been a big McCarthy guy. Mm-hmm. He's now in his last year of his deal, right? He's quote unquote free agent after this.
And we know that GMs love their own guys.
Yeah. So my question is, and I don't know the answer to this, but normally I thought when coaches left, a lot of times the offensive coordinators, the defensive coordinators might leave with them. And I just don't want to see, I don't want to see anything like that. Cause obviously these two guys are hired by Gutekunst. They're Gutekunst guys.
Right.
Would you prefer a offensive minded coach or a defensive minded head coach as the next head coach, hypothetically, if that were to happen?
Offensive.
Yeah.
I think you get a lot more cohesiveness with the team, because offense does run the NFL now. Mm-hmm. And I think maximizing what we have up there, and, you know, if Pettin stays, you know, I have faith in him that he would be able to make our defense be able to do what they need to do to get us a win. That's the thing. We don't need a defense that's going to hold you to 2 scores. Mm-hmm. They can give up 20 points if we have our offense clicking. Mm-hmm. So that's where I would go. Just someone who can maximize Rodgers, Jones, MVS, Graham, Adams. I mean, that would be a dangerous team.
Mm-hmm. Well, since your episode's going to play like shortly thereafter the Patriots game, it'll probably play after, is it the Dolphins the following week? It'll probably play after that game. Before we wrap up here, what's your prediction for the Patriots game?
I was encouraged by last week. I do think that the Packers will win. It's going to be kind of a back and forth, higher scoring game. So I'm going to go Green Bay 34, New England 31.
Great prediction. We'll see how it comes out when the episode drops. Well, thank you once again, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been fun having you come over. I like doing them in person. It's a different atmosphere and a different environment to do them in person. So, as always, to end the episode, we'll end with a nice Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
folks, that is another episode of the Green Bay Narrative in the books. Thank you all for taking the time to listen. I also want to say a huge thank you to Paul for taking the opportunity to come over, tell his story, and really sit down and hang out with me for a while. It was awesome to get to know him a little bit more. Once again, remember, next week I am joined by a former Green Bay Packer. You're really going to want to hear this story. It was really fun to really dive in and ask some different different questions and hear some different stories. So that was a blast. Follow me on any of my social medias if you don't already. The Green Bay Guy on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can add me on Snapchat, the GB Guy. I just created a YouTube channel as well, so if you haven't subscribed over there, the Green Bay Guy, you can go find it over there. Until next time, go Pack, go.